Welcome back to another video. You already know who it is. It is 𝗶𝘆, Catherine, and the wonderful Caitlin. And today we will be talking about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and childhood trauma. Ladies, take it away.
Alright, so we have had quite an eventful 2020 so far. There's been a lot of major events, some traumatic, in just the first month of the year, going into February. And so we just kind of wanted to touch on a few of PTSD's symptoms, so that maybe within yourself you can reflect and see if any of those are occurring within you, and also to talk a little bit about certain events that maybe happened in your childhood and see if anything is now occurring in your adult life that stems from that.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is basically a disorder where someone who has a traumatic experience tends to have flashback of the event, and therefore they tend to, they can't sleep, they become depressed, anxiety. For example, people who go to war and then return home, their mindsets can never be the same because they have PTSD. If they hear like a boom, they probably jump up and get scared, triggered,
And it takes them back to that time where they were in the battlefield.
Right.
So that is one of the symptoms of PTSD, which is reliving that negative or traumatic experience. So like the flashbacks can be really vivid. It can feel like you're physically there, emotionally back in that moment.
And even with the earthquake that happened the other day, I am pretty sure that a lot of people had some form of trauma with that. I know even, throughout the week, people would feel like a little shake, and all of a sudden I would see they get tense up and like, that right there, my friends.
That's another symptom. So feeling wound up. Caitlin and I were kind of talking about feeling on edge, like you feel like something might happen, you feel a bit more anxious than usual, like you're just nervous.
And there are different degrees to it. So the most common example that is used for PTSD is the war veteran. But something as, not simple, but as a natural disaster, which we know we have no control over and they happen, even going through something like that can leave you in a post-traumatic stress state.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's why childhood trauma, a lot of people carry around childhood trauma that they haven't addressed in their childhood, and therefore that can come up as triggers in their everyday life.
So if anyone's been experiencing things like trouble with falling asleep, that's another sign of being wound up, because after suffering from a traumatic event, you kind of feel like you need to be ready for something, or you're just always thinking about, what if I'm sleeping when this thing happens again?
Not being able to return to the space in which the traumatic event happened, or any space that reminds you of that place that you were in, that's another one.
Yeah, so that can include like the places, people, activities that you were actually doing during that time. So if you were maybe at a certain restaurant when the earthquake happened, you might feel like you don't want to go back to that restaurant, anything like that, you'd want to avoid it.
Yeah, like for people who were bullied in school, school represents something that is not about learning and having fun and making friends. It's a traumatic experience. It's a place that holds a lot of trauma.
Another symptom is just having negative thoughts and feelings as well surrounding the event. So following whatever traumatic experience you had, you might feel angry, you might feel guilty, you might feel an increased amount of sadness. So those are things to watch out for as well. So following the earthquake and the tsunami warning that followed that, if you're experiencing those in the weeks that followed and the days that followed, it might be a sign that it was a very traumatic experience for you. Because like Caitlin said, people experience things at different levels. Resiliency is also something to consider. So some people are able to handle certain levels of trauma in a different way. On the other hand, levels of sadness, anger, guilt might be more intense than others.
From my experience during the earthquake, I know after that, like, and I've been honest, even if a small thing, it's not like I get jumpy or anything, but it's like I just pause for a minute to see if anything else is shaking. Because that's exactly what I did when the earthquake happened. I literally paused to see if it was just my car shaking or it's the entire place. So when that happens now, it's like it just takes me back. It's like those thoughts and stuff come back.
So those are some examples of symptoms of PTSD, and you might realize that you're experiencing some of them following the earthquake, but maybe even prior to this earthquake, you were feeling some of these symptoms, and that might pinpoint that there's another traumatic event that maybe wasn't addressed. And so, like Caitlin mentioned, there are often a lot of things that might have happened in childhood that because they're not addressed, then we can't heal from them or address them appropriately.
So even with the earthquake, not being able to get in contact with your family could spark feelings of abandonment that you had as a child. Those things can pop up, and it doesn't necessarily go together, but that's your experience, because we have a lot of untargeted traumas, and it's that work that we need to do to really associate them so that they don't pop up all the time and then increase our levels of anxiety and stress when things happen.
So the first step would be identifying those traumas. How can we go about that?
I think the most powerful memories that we have those strong emotional attachments to them. So, you know, you'll remember a birthday party that you had and they'll be like, oh, it was the best day ever. I was so happy that day. But you don't really remember like the specific things. You remember the emotion that was there. And now with something that's like a traumatic incident, you will remember it from an emotional lens. And so everything is heightened. Going back to those memories that really stick out to you from your childhood, I know a lot of people, I remember a lot from my childhood. Some people only remember like maybe 5 stories. And I don't know if it's because I had a lot of home videos growing up or something, but I remember a lot from my childhood. And so pinpointing those memories that really stand out to you, that can be an opportunity for you to look into them deeper and to say, maybe I need to give that little girl or that little boy an apology that she never got. And make sure she knows or he knows that they're safe and cared for and loved and perfect the way they are, and all those things that weren't said to you in those times, but you probably had some negative things there.
Because if we're not doing those things and we're just holding on to that trauma, and it'll just keep resurfacing in different situations at different times with different people during different events.
It's almost like an autoimmune disease almost, where the body is attacking itself, because it's like an emotional poison that you just keep taking every day.
So what are some signs that might indicate that there is some unresolved trauma from your childhood?
I think a sign that you've gone through a traumatic experience is like if someone says something to you and like you completely just like, your mood completely changes. That's a good indicator, you know, because sometimes it'll be like the smallest thing and you will just like be triggered, and it's like identifying your triggers, like what has floored me now into this mode where I feel fight or flight, I feel defensive, I feel like I need to protect myself. I think that's one of the signs.
To add into what Caitlin said, clingy and dependent behavior could be a sign, and also repetitive and intrusive thoughts. Closing this video, we just want to ask if there's anyone experiencing, you know, any traumatic or negative feelings since the earthquake happened. If you are, you know, speak to someone about it. You know, you can even DM one of us anonymously and let us know how you're feeling.
And make sure not to judge yourself in your process and what you need specifically in order to get through this. You may need to seek some professional help, to talk to someone who knows what they're doing. So if you need to go to therapy or even just talk to some close friends or a community of people, give yourself the space to do that. Don't let those repetitive, intrusive thoughts of other people have it way worse and I'm just overreacting and whatever. Get yourself the help that you need. Give yourself the space that you need to address those traumas.
Always remember, whatever feelings you have are valid.
Yep.
Be safe, guys.
Till next time.
Bye.